Caleb, did you know that you can use Mountain Dew Voltage in a mixed cocktail?
Oh, hi, Brian.
Hey,
Hi.
although I realize if
I
you're watching on video, probably the glass I just held up was not the most appetizing looking one. It is a little milky.
you
Yeah.
think you
The
should get
hard
that
water in our
checked out?
house is no joke. Yeah,
Well, at least you're not in Flint, Michigan. So,
that's true.
welcome to the one about Godzilla movies. We're back.
Hey,
We're a little rusty. That's what happens when you don't record for a long time. We're gonna figure it out.
yeah, I mean, you listened to our last episode. Like, we were very excited to talk about Godzilla minus one, and we rode that high for some time.
So long,
We're now back in the 50s today,
way back.
so not quite the same.
Speaking of the 50s, have you heard about this black garlic soy sauce at McDonald's?
Speaking of segues, no, I have not.
What does Scooters have to do with this? I was asking you about sauce for nuggets. Are you thinking of Rashida Jones? What?
What?
Let's just move on. I am so tired. I'm so
Oh my
tired.
god, where did that even come
I've been
from?
on vacation since Sunday. It is. I'll let you. I'm not even going to reveal what day it is. You know what day it is. You, Brian,
I
not
could,
you, the
I
listener.
could see the vacation in your hair there.
Yeah, dude, it's great.
Yeah,
Good old Lake Mich. Good old
it's
Lake Michigan.
giving Three Stooges. The flood.
Shemp, yeah, Shemp, dude, absolutely.
It's definitely that.
If
No
anything,
shade, no shade. Much
if
love to the Three Stooges.
if anything, my podcasting career here, video podcasting career, will at least stand to prove that I just let my hair do whatever it wants. And that's Caleb Service Release 3 here for 2024. So onwards about the movie. We're back in the 50s. This is
Shut.
Brian. I'm Caleb. This is a podcast about Godzilla movies. We jumped around for a minute, did a whole bunch of every time that they rebooted the series, we did all those movies. Then we kind of
Yeah.
finished out what is the most recent arc of Godzilla films, both from America and Japan. And now we're going all the way back to the very beginning, well, almost the very beginning, to the second film in the entire franchise, Godzilla,
First sequel,
the first sequel, Godzilla Raids Again.
1955, baby.
1955. Yeah.
Yep. Back to the black and white. Back to some of the actors from the first film.
Were
Back
there
to
really? I
yeah,
didn't pick up on that. That's interesting.
there were yeah. I mean, so I watched it yesterday. You probably watched it 40 times. You haven't.
I
Probably less
haven't.
than other ones, huh?
Probably less than other ones. Yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not one of my favorites. It stands to be how they just continued the series. Basically, I don't know. Yeah. I did rewatch it within the last few days. It's yeah. Let's get into it. Anything else
That
before
good, huh?
we? Anything before we jump in? Do you want me to do a little TLDR?
Um, yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we've mentioned this before, but the only modern movie we haven't watched yet is Shin Godzilla, and I believe we are gonna save that for maybe the very end of the podcast. Is that still the plan?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
I feel it.
it is hands down my favorite Godzilla movie. It was up in the air between that and minus one for a while, but I rewatched.
Mm,
When did I watch Shin Godzilla? When we were working in your neck of the woods there recently, one of my down
I'm
nights.
sure I will love it. I'm also
It's
very patient. I'm
yeah, it's I think it's
willing to
gonna be
wait.
worth. I think it's gonna be worth the wait. So yeah, you were talking about we skipped Shin Godzilla. We're saving it to the end.
Right. So now we're trucking along chronologically, I guess.
Yeah. It's gonna...
I am waiting for Vicini. Told me to go back to the beginning.
Ciao, Bambini. As we both take a drink, what excellent podcasting.
Welcome, O listener,
Title.
to the TDLR of Godzilla Raids Again, as read by Caleb.
Yeah, so TLDR, Godzilla Raids Again. 2 fishing scout pilots make an absolutely horrifying discovery. So fishing scouts, dudes in planes scouting ahead of ships that are fishing, make a horrifying discovery when they encounter a second Godzilla alongside a new monster named Anguirus. Without a weapon that killed the original, without the weapon that killed the original, Japanese authorities attempt to lure Godzilla away from the mainland. But Anguirus soon arrives, and the 2 monsters make their way towards Osaka as Japan braces for tragedy.
It's a great setup.
Thank you.
Wow, should we get into it?
Yeah. What did you like about this film, my friend?
Yeah, so I figured this one wouldn't be as good as the first one. I had a feeling about that, mostly because of the length being only like an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, ooh, that feels like a phoned-in length. Let's see. But there were a lot of things I enjoyed in this film. Maybe not as many things as I might have some criticism of. But for what it is, it's not bad. There's some interesting things. I definitely have some criticisms. Some things that I thought were cool. We have our first on-screen antagonist kaiju, for lack of a better term, versus Godzilla.
Yeah, it's not just man versus monster.
Yeah, and they sort of hand-wavy said it was basically the Ankylosaurus, even though it didn't really look like an Ankylosaurus. They're basically saying it was a dinosaur. And yeah, they just kind of said that, hey, the nuclear testing must have woken up that as well. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see some of the...
Very hand-wavy, for sure.
Very hand-wavy, yeah, very hand-wavy. Yeah, I mean, as soon as like it came on screen, I was like, hey, this looks a little jank, but I'm also watching the first Godzilla versus another monster on screen ever. So, you got to start somewhere. The franchise has come a long way, but so yeah, historical, I guess, would be the significance of that. I didn't think any of the fighting was particularly amazing or gripping. Just kind of looked like 2 dudes in suits fighting each other and clapping their hands at each other, whatever,
Did you notice that it seemed like or a majority of the monster footage was like slightly sped up?
Yep. I actually have a bunch of notes about that in general.
Okay. I thought
which
of you.
I will get to in my criticisms.
Yeah. Oh, I do not doubt it, and I will let you go when you need to go on that. But like, yeah, I thought of you in that moment because of your comment of how quickly and nimble and kind of like unrealistic Godzilla's movement was in Godzilla vs. Kong, the New Empire. So anyways, carry on.
Sure. Thankfully, the human eye can tell the difference between real-time fast and something that was sped up. Like, we're very good at picking up on that. That may just be like our modern eyes. It might be when this movie came out that they wouldn't have noticed or...
I was literally just going to ask that if that was...
Who knows?
If you thought that was because our eyes are so used to...
We can talk about it a little bit now.
60 FPS.
I was thinking about it.
But like...
I didn't do a lot of research, but like, I know there's a lot of like speed ramping. Or overcranking, I think would be the term, because they're, at least back in the silent film era, they were hand cranking the camera. And so like the speed of the film was literally how fast you cranked it.
Yeah, depending on...
So you either have the perfect speed or it's like slower.
Or homeboy had a bum
overcrank
wrist. Yeah.
And they would like very stereotypically like overcrank action scenes and to like make them more exciting or faster. And I think that probably like lasted even into the talkie era when sound started to enter the picture. But I was finding myself wondering like when did that kind of like go out of style? You know, I feel like it was before the 50s, but what do I know? You know, I'll be the first to admit most of the films I've seen from the 50s that I consider to be excellent, actually all the films from the 50s I've seen aren't really ones with action in them. So I don't have a comparison point, to be honest. But yeah, I noticed that as well. I thought it was an interesting idea. They didn't really like expand on it much. That this Godzilla is canonically a different Godzilla than the Godzilla in the first movie. That basically just said it's a different one. Unfortunately, they also immediately after referenced all kinds of research they had about how to fight it based on the first one they fought, as if they would be applicable to a different monster.
Right.
But they seem to be contradicting themselves a little bit there. But it's an interesting idea because they did, in the first movie they killed Godzilla, and I think it's cool that they sort of like committed to that ending, even though they needed a way to like have Godzilla be around again. So, not the best writing, but interesting idea. Um, yeah, actually, I think my favorite stuff in this movie was literally just cultural and period. I I've never seen. I believe it was Osaka in the entire film that we were seeing city wise, unless I missed something. I'm pretty sure it was Osaka the whole time.
Yeah.
Um,
Largely.
I when I like see like city shots of Tokyo or any of those cities like from modern day with like all the neon lights, it's like such a like a it's like something we've seen a million times over. I didn't realize that that kind of a look was around in the 50s. And I've never seen black and white footage of like the vertical neon light sort of city vibe. I just thought it looked so cool.
Yeah, in black and white. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I like think of that as a modern look, but it really that was really the way it looked. And I found myself googling like what did Times Square look like in like the early 50s. And like nothing like that.
Nothing like
Did not look like
so.
that at all.
Just so it's like the Japanese have just
Um
always been.
cool.
Yeah.
Um although I will say even in like the images of Times Square, like there were marquees and stuff that they were kind of at the first story level. There wasn't like a lot of stuff high up on buildings. But when I was like sort of looking back to the Osaka footage, it occurred to me Japanese is written top down and I think right to left also. So I didn't really think about the vertical aspect of the way things are written in those characters and how that adds like an element of verticality to signage. So that's probably like a factor. None of this really has anything to do with Godzilla. I just thought it looked cool. And then there was like a whole like ballroom dancing scene and like a clear example of like 50s Japanese ballroom, we'll call it jazz. That was super cool.
Yeah.
It just felt like a sort of like a slice of life. Very like I don't know. It didn't really seem connected to the film per se
No,
story
and
wise,
it's
but it
like,
was it was fun.
yeah, an oddly like well thought out moment
Hmm.
in this whole kind of hastily produced thing.
Yeah, no, I liked it. Um, so one of the things they referenced fighting the first Godzilla, even though this is a different Godzilla and they're still using the same strategies to fight it, was that he was like they decided he was sensitive to light, so they decided to kind of use these flares to disorient Godzilla and discourage him from coming ashore. And I thought that was a cool idea. I was sort of like looking at the screen, struggling to kind of figure out what I was looking at. Um, just special effects wise, like there's sort of like these glowing orbs. They're supposed to sort of represent these. I take it flares was the idea, and I was trying to figure out like, is this captured in camera? Is this like something they like overlaid later? Or,
Yeah,
I don't know. It had that interesting look to it.
I felt that way about the snow as well later on in the film when there were like just the shots of
Yes,
snowfall and stuff like that.
I noticed
That
that as well.
totally just looked like some kind of overlay or like.
Yeah, it's definitely not there. The snow was definitely like after the fact or on top of, or maybe double exposed. Like maybe they like were playing back the film and re-recording it with some snow falling in front, something like that. Though I think that like the film looked exposed properly, so I'm not sure. But I thought that was a cool idea. And then Anguirus like came on shore, so they just basically wrote in, "Oh, the flares attracted Anguirus and discouraged Godzilla."
Yeah.
Very convenient, but anyways, interesting idea. Um, despite all the criticism that I haven't gotten into yet, some really, really good miniature work in this film. There's some really cool shots that I just like appreciated. Like there was an interesting shot of sort of like water flooding an underwater subway, and like the way it rushed in, I was like, "Are those like?" They had some people down there. I was like, "Are those dummies?" And they're just like miniature dummies, and they're just flooding it, or couldn't tell what I was looking at. I've like literally played it back 3 times in the middle of watching the film, and I kind of noticed almost like the humans down there, sort of like there's like a bit of a transparency, like they sort of like faded out as the water came in. I was like, maybe they're like combining something they shot with real humans with this miniature shot they shot. I'm not really sure how they did it. Looked cool. Um, yeah, some really impressive special effects overall. There is like one shot where there's like sort of like a tall temple kind of a structure, and the monsters are fighting, and they have like this shot where there's almost like this crackle effect where the building like cracks or like sort of looks like cracking, but it almost looks like an overlay or something. Like they like cut between different pieces of film or something, and then it like sort of explodes and blows up and falls and stuff. And
Yeah, it was
yeah,
it was an interesting take on a special effect like that. They were trying to just convey that like it was because like Godzilla was like pushing Anguirus into
mm-hmm.
that temple or whatever the heck it is. They even call it out in the film.
Do they?
Yeah, I don't
But
remember what
yeah,
it's
there were a
called,
lot
but
of like
yeah.
a lot of miniatures, a lot of
Yeah.
model work, a lot of destroying that said model.
I feel like
um,
I know we're going to see it eventually. I'm for some reason having like a flash of there's another movie where they destroy some temples like that, and they had some real cool, very
hmm,
like detailed miniatures of like temples and stuff. I think it might even be Godzilla vs Kong, like the original.
hmm, okay,
What is it,
which
King
is
Kong versus
not
Godzilla
too
or
far out.
whatever? Yeah, not too far out, but
Cool.
yeah, there's some.
Significantly better than this one, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember there's definitely some more cool tower or sorry, like temple, cool Japanese looking building destruction coming up. It's not just
Hmm,
all city skyscraper stuff all the time. Eventually it becomes that, but we get another cool temple shot.
yeah. What are some things you liked?
Who? Um I thought this Godzilla design was kind of interesting. He's got the
I noticed were
really
the spikes bigger
spikes were
on the
definitely
back?
bigger on the back.
They seem more like
Um
obvious.
this I feel like this it's like this is kind of the base suit that they like that we're gonna have now going forward. The tail's a little bit longer. It's more I don't know. It's like the body looks a little less messed up from radiation, but the face still has the like really like the teeth are really jagged. And apparently I need to upgrade my zoom because we only have 10 minutes left.
Hmm.
Daddy didn't pay the bill. Hang on, let me fix this. I'm just gonna keep talking. What's in the show is in the show. I already have an account. Sign in. Do you remember what I was talking about, Brian? His teeth. I was talking about
Nope.
Godzilla's teeth. I'll edit all this out. No, I won't. Yes, I will. No, I won't. Yes, I will. What is going on, dude? In other news, this is just riveting podcast content as I continue to... No, I can't do Apple Pay because my phone is my camera. So we've been on vacation this week. This will be a fun little... We just kind of jumped in. We didn't talk about any real life stuff.
It's true.
We've been on vacation this week, which is why I'm so tired. Every year, my in-laws rent a tiny little, like, should probably be for like 6 to maybe 7 people. And we cram 16 people in this place. And we're there for a week, and it's like, it's chaos.
Goodness.
Yeah, right? Processing, pay the bill, blah, blah, blah. So this year, though, it's been kind of nice because the 2 other like families with kids and stuff that like everybody's just been kind of like coming and going a little bit. So it hasn't just been like all 16 people there all week. It's been really fun having a 1.5-year-old who is uber adventurous and has no fear and just like runs into Lake Michigan with no abandon. It's been so fun. She loves the water. It's so fun. And there we are. Unlimited time. Daddy paid the bill. Woo! Okay, so I thought, yeah, I liked his teeth. I thought Godzilla had cool, like messed up, like
With nose teeth.
His eyes are really weird in this one. It's a weird, like, googly eyes.
I didn't miss that either.
They didn't do very many, like, top-down close-up shots. Lots of them were, like, down, like, from the bottom up, or from, like, direct face on. And the shots on Godzilla, at least close shots, were never very long. Like you said, this is a pretty quick movie, and I think that's one of the things I like about it. They dumped the... I didn't like that they dumped the, like, the weight of the original movie, but I'm glad that because they dumped the weight, they didn't try and, like, make it super long. Does that make sense? Like, they kept it tight.
Yeah.
Probably because they didn't have a whole lot of... It's a pretty thin story anyways, but, like, I don't think I would have liked this to have been a longer movie as this story stands anyways. So,
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I
agree.
Other than that, I was reminded of Godzilla -1 when they decided that they were going to try and blow up the mountain and trap him, and they put all the like barrels of gasoline down and started shooting those with the big like heavy machine guns or whatever. I was like, oh, hey, that's a cool little like... I guess they kind of call back to... because the barrels start exploding and it's all on fire in front of him and stuff. I was kind of reminded of Shikishima.
The opening sequence?
No, not the opening sequence.
No.
Later in the film, in Godzilla Raids Again, just it's the final act where they have...
I meant, sorry, the beginning of Godzilla -1 is what I meant.
No, not the beginning of Godzilla -1, but the later on in the film where they are... because they're like exploding mines with the big, huge machine gun, and then they're doing that when he's like chasing them, Jaws style.
That's true.
I just kind of thought that was whether it was intentional or not, it was like, hey, we're kind of back in a similar time with -1, and now in this movie, like time in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so they, just kind of, yeah, I thought it was, whether it was an intentional nod to this movie or not, I thought that was cool. Yeah, whether the whole like machine gun blow stuff up to try and harm or trap Godzilla in -1, if that was a nod to Godzilla Raids Again or not intentionally, I still thought it was cool. Um,
Hmm.
I kind of liked the like they're trying to find a girl for the one dude and he had a crush on the other girl, but then she died and then he died and like but like as like cheesy as it was all right and like the girls were kind of cute and like whatever, I
There's
don't
some
know.
levity.
Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't like terrible. I like like when the one dude dies and she has to go in and like tell the boss of her, whatever, and she's like, he's gone, he's not coming back, and she starts to cry. It's just like, oh, that's I don't know, why I felt. Maybe it's because I'm a dad and I've been hanging out with my little girl all week, but like, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's about all I liked about this movie. I was really surprised to remember or like hear that Anguirus, his like roar, its roar or whatever is this. It's basically it's the same, and it's always been the same since now since the 50s. Like
Really.
yeah, that kind of shrill, kind of like a stretched out cat meow kind of. Like you chop off the start of a cat meow and stretch out the rest of it is kind of what his roar sounds like to me. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I
Nice.
yeah, that's what I liked about that.
There's some redeeming things in it, for sure.
It's not terrible.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it like I don't know. I got to the last 20 minutes and saw that there were only 20 minutes left and was like, "Oh, thank goodness." Basically, is kind of how I felt about it. Like
Yeah, I was like that like the last half, basically.
and I may or may not have skipped through some of the whole
More than
like
half.
let's get our plan together, blah blah, like like build
At
up
the
to
beginning.
a thing. Yeah, at the beginning, a little bit in the third act too, where they're like, "All right, we're gonna set all these oil cans up and blow them up," and then there's like you know the cut scene with
Montage.
inspiring music. Yeah, exactly, the montage. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's actually early on in the film where they have at least one guy from the first film, sort of like the expert they brought in, the guy with the mustache. The guy who's in the original film,
yeah.
they brought him in to sort of talk about strategies for defeating Godzilla, and he basically said, "We're all out of ideas, sir."
Just like, there are none.
He basically said, "We used our only idea last time on the other Godzilla, so let's make a plan right now."
Oh, and also the guy that made that thing last time,
He's dead.
he's dead because he blew that thing up himself.
So I have no plans, and let's make one right now. It's basically how that went.
Title.
Yep. Um, cool. All right. Definitely room for criticism on this one. I got a little list here. Yeah, there's some pretty obvious, like, film editing, cutting issues in this film. Um, there's like some comping in the very beginning where like these two fighter pilots are on the island and there's monsters fighting behind them, and there's like two elements going on. There's one element of the monsters at scale and there's an element of the pilots at scale. And normally you like have to like they're very well planned out and tracked together so that they move together. And this was like this. And it's like, wow, you're fooling no one with this special effects trick you're using. You
Well,
could
fix
have.
it in post. Fix it in
Well, that's.
pre.
I mean, typically they do like that in camera with like perspective or by like exposing the same piece of film multiple times.
I need to remember that for
So I
show
don't know
notes.
what went wrong, but yeah.
Fix it.
So
Tippy toe lemon tree. Tippy toe lemon tree. So Sorry. Continue.
I never know what you're gonna say. Title. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the comping, but more just like the editing stuff. That's like a sort of a recurring thing in this film. There's like some obvious weird stuff.
And
That
it all literally comes down to just how quickly this movie was thrown together and produced.
absolutely it was.
In an absolute grab for like we can't let the hype
It's
around
a
this
literal
die.
cash grab,
Yeah,
literal.
yeah,
I
which
think
is
they
too bad.
greenlit this like within the first 2 weeks of the first movie coming out. That is bold.
And then not only is that bold, this is a little bit of trivia. I don't really care. That's
Hmm.
bold, and then bold that you don't even wait for the director of the original one to finish up the next movie he's working on. You just get somebody else and just, I don't care, go.
Yeah,
Yeesh. Bad move. Bad. It's a bad
right.
move, Bob. Some bad hat, Harry. Anyways.
That's a misunderstanding of who made that movie a success and who
Yeah.
was involved to
Yeah.
knock it out of the park. So, but yeah, I mean that I noticed that as well with like some terrible match cuts. You know what match cuts are? Um,
I don't think so.
it's like typically it's like we're like cutting between different scenes and you match the camera move so that you can splice the shots together and it
Oh,
goes right from one to the other.
sure. Yeah, 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 yeah,
You
yeah.
you also use that term for like I don't know, like you have a shot that ends with like a frozen camera in one location and then you stop rolling and then you have to reset some things and then you start rolling again and that camera can't move because it's supposed to be a continuous shot. And there's several spots, especially in like the inmate escape chase sequence, where like it's like they paused the camera and then resumed, but the camera had like moved, obviously.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even try to like reline it up or like fix it in the editing bay, like I don't know, like reframe the film or something. I don't know how you do it, but I'm sure it's possible to like fix that, but they didn't even try. You're just like, oh, it just all of a sudden it just jumps to a different position. Um,
Timelines, man.
that the inmate escape chase sequence was the most obvious and glaring use of undercranked footage, which made it look super fast.
Yeah. And
It was like
like
all
kind
sped
of
up,
cartoony and like
very
weird.
cartoony,
Yeah.
and again, that's like my modern eyes, but I just think it looks done dumb. I don't know. If you think it's making it more exciting, it's not. It's really not a shortcut for good filmmaking.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it was some
Um,
like holdover of like, let's give it this weird little silent film feeling or whatever.
yeah, and I did just read like a few minutes ago that um, the guy operating the camera for the initial fight between the monsters meant to. I think the right term is overcrank it so it could be slow motion, but undercranked it, which made it look faster.
So he
I
just
guess
like
if you like,
didn't even
I guess if
understand
you
what they were
turn the
doing.
crank slower, that means the film is faster. That's hurting my brain, sir. Anyways, um,
Don't listen. Just I'd hate addressing the audience, but don't email us about this. We're
please
at
do.
this point we don't know why we're even doing this show anymore. Anyways, continue.
It's you
Email us, please.
can
Let us know you're
stuff.
there. Is there anybody
It's you can
listening?
stuff this feedback at the one about Godzilla movies.org. So
The one about Godzilla movies at gmail.com. Um, let us know you're
the
listening.
doc's the real one.
Nobody listens to this one. Nobody listens to this show. Anyways,
They will years from now. It'll take off. Just you wait.
yeah, it's an omnibus.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with this movie overall is they just kind of started with this fight, and then we're like, all right, we're going to move on to some random stories about humans now for most of the film, and then maybe we'll bring the monsters back at the end. Very like in terms of like 3 act sequence, it's just like they're like blazing their own trail with this
It
with the
literally was
order of
like,
this
okay, we've got
movie.
Act 1 and 3. What are we gonna do in the middle, boys? Like,
Yeah. So they kind of, I mean, they cobbled something together. It wasn't the worst thing, but it's like, again, I was like checking my watch for a lot of it. I'm like, this doesn't seem very
yeah,
related to the monsters at all.
yeah,
Like you're not even trying to tie them together,
no.
really.
And there were a couple times where I
So
thought they were about to, and it's like, okay, cool, maybe we're gonna get a little something, and no, just
yeah. I think also the whole inmate escape sequence thing was the most random ass idea ever. Literally, like the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, what?
what did it even?
Why?
I don't
Why
even
is
really
this happening?
remember. What did it even serve to? How did it even happen? Is it
Well,
because they
I'm
were?
watching and I'm like, what is the point of this? What is
Oh
happening?
wait, they
Then
caused the
there's like a car chase, and then all
fire.
of a sudden, like this car just goes out of control and like jumps over a building and smashes into this plant and starts on fire. And I was like, oh wow, we just spent 15 minutes with a random idea just to have
Well,
some reason for it to be on fire, so Godzilla would come ashore. It wasn't connected to anything. It was just like all of a sudden we cut to this van with a bunch of inmates in it.
yeah,
No
it's
connection to anything before it.
in my head. It is one of those like, well, we need a way to
Yeah, they worked backwards from the
have him
fire.
suddenly, yeah, work backwards from the fire. But we already evacuated everybody from the city, so there's no traffic, so there's no like we can't just cut to a random police chase. It's not like, definitely work
Yeah,
backwards from the destruction for sure.
yeah,
And
that was
not
dumb.
and not spend enough time working backwards. Cuz you can do it. You can work backwards from the solution, but like
Sure,
that ain't it.
no.
Ain't it, Bob?
There were quite a few shots of terribly done rear projection, which is just so sad to see because they crushed that technique in the first movie. The idea of like shooting like the big stuff and then projecting it on a screen behind the real stuff you shoot, and then you shoot it a second time, and you're like, so it looks like it's all together. That was done so well in the first movie, and then this movie was just like, oh wow, well there's a projector screen.
Yeah,
That
and
doesn't look real.
they didn't even get back to table stakes with this one. It just is so
Tough.
yeah.
I guess I'm gonna have to get used to it. I don't really like Angurus's roar. To be
I
perfectly
mean, he's not
honest,
like he's a bit of a staple character, but it's not like you're not going to hear his roar as much as you've heard Godzilla's roar.
I I think it's 2 different recordings of saxophones fed into a guitar amp. I think that's what it is. It's literally like
It's like
two
a
different.
coyote and a trash compactor. And if you get that reference, I'll pay you $5. Anybody, without googling it.
I don't know. You're like my dad, but
She
all of
can't
your
sing.
references are
Nope, not a
cool.
note. It's like a coyote and a trash compactor. I'll tell you
Yeah,
off
I'm.
air. I'll tell you when we're off the air.
Oh yeah, Patreon content. I don't like the roar. It does
Eh,
actually sound like 2 notes from a reed instrument that are very close to each other,
yeah.
just completely distorted.
Yeah. Just bleh.
Yeah, like run through like Devil Lock. Devil Lock? What's the sound toys plug?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Devil lock.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
Caleb,
But the '50s
cut
version
in
of
a
that.
nice little Anguirus roar here for us. I'm probably not going to, but we'll see if I do. That's on Future Me.
We'll see. Yeah, the whole movie kind of felt like a cash grab, and it didn't take much research to confirm that's basically what it was. Case closed, sir.
Case closed. Book 'em. This guy's out of here in 3 hours, no problem. Um, I what didn't I mean? I echo a lot of everything that you said. I think this movie is hastily produced. Didn't carry it's yeah, it just is a cash grab. Didn't bring any kind of like weight or really anything but the name and general design of Godzilla from the first film. Um I don't know, it's kind of like watching WWE but in the 50s. Watch this movie for fights between Godzilla and Anguirus. But that's about it. Like, this is a great one to sit a young kid down in front of if you want to show them Godzilla because it's a little goofy. There's a bunch of fighting and it's relatively short. Why is there like no music in this movie? There's so many
Some.
like yeah, there is, but like so when they're watching like the bootleg version of the first movie in the
They
boardroom,
literally just watched footage from the first movie with no sound.
yeah, no sound. No
Yeah,
sound, no music. I had to like check and make sure that my MacBook was still like like turned it
it's just
up and was
silent.
listening for like film noise in the speakers. I was watching this in my tent last night, camping. It was actually pretty nice, just like chilling, air mattress, black and
Cool.
white. Anyways, the stars. I'm gonna try and I think I might side note I might get to see Starlink on Saturday, like in the middle of the
Hmm.
night, in like dark Michigan black, like way up north,
Hmm.
bunches of stars, and just get to see Starlink do its thing. Anyways, yeah, so no, yeah, not a whole lot of music, and I I felt like they did a really poor job of sound design in general. There are just lots of holes, lots of very quiet, unnecessarily quiet moments. The like or like during the fights between Godzilla and Anguirus, it was like I heard a whole lot of like timpani and cymbals, but that was about it. Or like when they're bombing Godzilla, there were no like growls or like like and his roar wasn't even used very many times, just like it's just bomb noises and you see him kind of like flailing around, but there's no like I think they did a really good job in the first film and they do a great job going forward of that kind of stuff. And you were talking about the hand crank cameras thing. That's like kind of the last thing on my list. Was that, do you know at the time, we could take to the internet science machine if we need to, but like, were auto crank cameras not a thing yet? Was this a, like, Toho was being cheap,
Maybe
potentially?
not. Uh, from what I've been seeing, one of the cameramen was like under cranking some of the shots in terms of the speed. So there's like some inconsistency there. I don't know, maybe they were shooting multiple things at the same time because they like turned this film around in 6 months.
Yeah, could be.
Crazy with all the
Yep.
special effects.
Yep.
Very fast. So maybe, I mean, they probably were shooting miniatures at the same time they were shooting other things. I'm guessing, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just one of the cameramen was shooting weird.
Yeah.
So,
I ultimately, to kind of wrap this up and we can talk about then our letterbox scores here when we're done.
sure.
Um,
There's
I
some
think,
trivia.
well, I just kind of, oh, yeah, like, yeah, letterbox scores, trivia. But my final thoughts on this in general, my like of the movie in general, I think Toho learned some lessons with this one on how much time they need to spend in production. When it
Hope
was
so.
released in the United States, it like they heavily edited it again, changed the name from Godzilla to Gigantus. And it just like the movie's basically considered a failure in the United States, right? So I think,
Yeah.
especially as we move
Actually,
forward in the
I'm counting
series.
that as a trivia item, actually. I have a lot more to say about the English
Oh,
thing.
cool. But yeah, I just think we'll see Toho learned some lessons the hard way with this movie, which sometimes you gotta do. I need
Hmm,
to pull up in Letterboxd this movie, so why don't you tell me
sure,
your rating and then we'll do trivia.
sure. Um, Maybe a little generous. I give this a 7. Um, I appreciated the special effects work and how fast they turned it around. I think that bumped it half star for me. I was really impressed by that. I was impressed by what I was seeing on screen, knowing how fast they did it.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's pretty decent considering what they were up against. Um, I give the original an 8. So based on plot, I'd probably say it's like a, I don't know, 3 stars or less even.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great plot,
No.
but what you see on screen is still pretty impressive. So it's a 7 for me.
I hate that you make me do math in real time.
What, that's the 5 to 10
So,
conversion, or
two, four. So I gave it a 4.5. Is that right? 4.25. I gave it 2.5 stars in Letterboxd. What is that?
oh, we can use a 5 star rating. I
What
gave
is?
it 3.5 stars
You gave it 3.5. I gave it 2.5.
out of 5.
It's my
Yeah.
least. It's my least favorite Godzilla movie. I just think it's kind of meh. The bastard spawn of the hydrogen bomb is back on his bullshit. Is I think like my favorite review of this whole movie in Letterboxd.
No, there's some good ones in there.
They call him the bastard spawn of the hydrogen bomb in the movie, and it's just
It's funny.
I LOL'd at that one. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm glad we got that one over with. On to
that's the
cooler
rating.
kaiju and marginally better storylines.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't watch it, but they did make an American sort of version of this film.
Is this officially
I
trivia? I'm gonna cut in a little trivia.
Sure.
Bam. Anyways, go ahead.
You're gonna
So
put
that
music in there? No, you aren't. Come on. Don't lie to our audience or yourself.
you can hear the '80s Rototom, right?
Please use game show music.
Trivia. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
WBBM News Radio.
That's the thing about this podcast. Between like the frequency
Bears
of our recording,
Radio.
between your ADD
WBBM.
and the frequency of our recording, even if we have a great idea in the middle of one episode, we're never going to do it again. It's just never going to.
Trivia.
So
Bow.
keep them guessing.
That'll just be the. I won't even cut in like theme song. It'll literally just be me going trivia. Bow. Cut from this episode forever and ever.
Wow.
Wow.
So speaking of trivia, yeah, they I don't think you could even call it an American version of this film. What they did is they took the plot of a script that they'd written called The Volcano Monsters, about monsters. They took just the monster fighting footage from this film and made a whole new movie. From my understanding, of course, it's like terrible and not worth watching, which is why I didn't watch it. Anyone who has seen it, it's not worth watching. But from my understanding, they basically turned it into a heavily narrated and dubbed thing with a whole new plot with some new actors based on this script. They just had the script lying around, and and so they titled it Gigantus, the Fire Monster.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine people who saw it were like, "That's Godzilla." Like, why are we calling this
Wait a minute.
Gigantus? I don't get it.
The Spider-Man meme pointing
Yeah. So
at each other.
pointing. Yeah, focus.
E.T.
Ah, that's a thumbnail right
E.T.
there. I can promise you.
Thumbnail.
Um.
Bam.
Anyways, really the only thing interesting about that, I'm sure it's not worth watching, is that one of the dub actors, his first role, George Takei.
I was going to say Liam Neeson, but that's pretty cool.
How old do you think Liam Neeson is? Holy cow, dude.
He could have been a kid.
He's not that old. Come on.
George Takei, huh? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think just in that dub, I think. So, how much interesting trivia is there? There's not a lot. Obviously, there's some items here about how fast the film was turned around. I guess Toho's executive producer was out of the country, came back, heard that it was very successful, and told the producer, make another one. And that's how this movie came about.
Hi.
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 The beginning of the film, the guys in the suits fighting monsters, they like dive into the ocean. Those guys had to dive into the ocean inside the suits. That's terrifying.
Drowned and died, and we thank them for their service.
They did not. But they had a lot of people on standby to make sure they didn't drown. This is long before OSHA, I guess.
And we thank them for their service.
Yeah. Oh, apparently Warner Brothers couldn't get permission to use the name Godzilla for their American remake.
Well,
Which doesn't make much sense
thank
because
God.
Toho provided the footage to them.
Godzilla.
And I think provided the monster props. I had read somewhere. Just to like help them design, or I don't know.
It's the
Weird.
50s, man. Drugs.
Yeah.
Everything. Birds. Title.
This is apparently the only film in the Godzilla series in which the dorsal fins do not glow before he uses his atomic breath.
Also,
that makes sense. That would be a lot of work.
The most bitch ass of atomic breath of all
when
the
did he
atomic
even
breaths.
use it?
Didn't just like my 7-year-old nephew, Daniel, was watching along with me, and he just goes, "That's not even what. That's not even. Is that snow?"
I don't even remember. Dude, there was so much cultural stuff about fish in this movie, in the fish business.
Oh no, our fish! Oh no!
It was just like such a side plot of just like this fishing company.
They destroyed our
like
tuna
had nothing
cannery.
to do with.
Rawr.
Yeah.
We'll set up again in Osaka or Okinawa or Haneda or wherever the fuck it was. Sorry, bleep that. Did I mention I've been on vacation?
You have been on vacation.
But have you been to Barcelona?
Oh, I think that that tower thing they destroyed was Osaka Castle.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I knew.
But a miniature version of course. They didn't actually destroy.
They didn't actually. They.
I mean, that's about all I have. We're about 1 hour recording.
Hey,
as of
great.
the second.
We made
on
it.
The dot.
Oh, Lord Jesus, it's fire.
I said it's a fire.
I didn't grab no shoes or nothing, Jesus. I just ran.
I said, Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
That's me. I say that one whenever like my knees hurt when I stand up from doing something at work and my knees hurt really bad. I go, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. And then the other one when I just, like stretch or something, I go, oh, Lord, pause. And then won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?
Oh my gosh.
I said I wanted to keep this tight and neat and tiny, and here I am rambling on dropping too many references to count. This has
If you want it
been
to be tight, I won't be an obstacle to that.
so patreon.com/the one about Godzilla movies. You could be our first subscriber, unless you're listening to this in 2035 and we've blown up and we are an omnibus, a pillar of truth and history of the franchise of Godzilla.
What the H are you talking about?
I'm very tired. I need to go to bed.
You just turn into a quote dispenser.
Here's the problem.
Title. Freaking quote, like a Pez dispenser, but it's just chipping out quotes.
La la la. It's a great Morrissey lyric. Like a Pez dispenser chipping out quotes. La la la.
All right, how are we ending this? Okay, I got it. We were happy to have you listening to us for this episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. I hope that confetti made it into the recording. Oh my gosh. The confetti is perfect.
Oh, so great.
I love it.
For real though, you could be our first Patreon subscriber.
Yeah.
Love you, bye.